Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me. The first thing I heard that morning was the cane hitting the tile. A sharp tap left of center. Same as always. My knee hated summer humidity, but I moved through it. You don't get to flinch after what I've seen. Quick note before we keep going, drop a comment with the city or country you're listening from. It helps us know where you're tuning in and when to post the next stories. Thanks, and let's dive back in. My name's Michael Mike Carter 37. Burned in a JP5 ramp fire off the coast of Kuwait in 2020. Navy, then Marine dead. Been living quiet outside Rockford, Illinois. 14-year-old trailer with a dented mailbox and a busted porch light. That's how it's been for 4 years. Early June 2025. Already pushing 82 before noon. I checked the bus route again, third time. Folded the paper twice, kept it in my jacket pocket just in case my phone died. That's how I prep. Not paranoia, just experience. Needed a real ID license, something more than expired base creds and a worn-out VA card. I hadn't seen my brother Jacob Jake Carter in almost 4 years. He's in Maple Ridge, an hour east if the weather's good. No car, no license, no visit. That simple. I shaved slow. Bathroom light dim, so I didn't have to look at myself too much. Skin tight on the left side of my face, pulled like plastic wrap scarred up from temple to jaw. Cold water rinse still shocked the nerves even now. My hat stayed low over my brow even though folks stared. Anyway, the county DMV was a squat cinder block box behind a softball field and a busted Coke machine that hadn't worked since before the pandemic. I saw a security guy out front, Shane Porter, on the badge, scrolling his phone like nothing could surprise him. Inside smelled like overheated toner and carpet that needed to be pulled up a decade ago. Floor scents hummed overhead. I clocked the line already. Snake curved past the outdated Flyers farm equipment ads, missing cats summer tax reminders from last year. 2 clerks ran the joint like they owned it. Nadine Walker and Carla Jensen. Hair sprayed into place, expressions set on permanent disapproval. I watched 2 guys slide white envelopes across the counter like they were tipping a dealer. Nadine tucked one into a pencil holder without blinking. Carla barely looked up. Business as usual. I kept my back to the wall cane across my knees, eyeing the exits. That's how I sit. That's how I survive. That's when I saw her. She moved different, quick, precise, like she genuinely cared. Maybe 25, 26. Sleeves rolled, brown hair twisted up in a clip. She was saying something under her breath in French. Sounded like calm or pag. Words that didn't quite land but softened the space around her. She noticed me freeze by the crowd. Didn't hesitate. Walked over with a paper cup of water and said, "I saved a quiet spot, Labas." She nodded toward a bench near the corner, a stretch from the others. I took it didn't even argue. She didn't flinch at my face. That alone put her in rare company. "Mercy," she added, then corrected herself with a smile. "I mean thanks." And she winked like it was normal, like I was normal. She tapped the bench like it was a mission drop point. "You're good here." I sat, pulled out my old unit patch to fidget. Electronic warfare black raven wings frayed at the corners. Didn't even notice it slipped to the floor. Over the intercom, a number chimed. My turn was still a ways off. I checked my notebook times order, scribbled notes on how many people had gone ahead of me without seeming to wait. Normal stuff for someone who doesn't trust systems anymore. I adjusted my grip on the cane, slowed my breathing. 4 and 4, hold 6 out. That's how we were trained. Nobody noticed me except Emily. For the first time in years, being visible didn't feel like a threat. The line barely moved. 4 people ahead of me, 6 behind, and it felt like no one in front was actually doing anything. Just standing there, half tuned into the overhead number system, half focused on their phones or the stale air around us. A baby started wailing 2 rows down, and that sound, sharp, high, raw, ripped straight through my chest like a breach alarm. I clenched the cane. My jaw locked, vision tunneled. That high-pitched sound echoed off something in my head that didn't like being touched. My hearing started to go tinny like I was listening from inside a bucket. My pulse jumped in my throat. The security guard shifted behind his desk. Big guy, stocky. I recognized Shane Porter looked like he played high school ball and never fully quit. He glanced at the clock, then at me, eyes catching on the jacket like he expected something under it besides my elbow and a sweat-soaked VA t-shirt. I tried to place both boots flat to anchor myself, but the carpet gave too much. That baby kept crying, and now a toddler nearby started kicking the metal bench like it was a snare drum. I shut my eyes. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6, box breathing. It wasn't magic, but it helped. Carla Jensen and Nadine Walker, sitting behind the main counter, acted like the world didn't have edges. Carla Jensen snorted something at Nadine Walker, who was too busy smiling at a guy sliding a thick white envelope toward her. She scooped it without blinking and slid it out of sight beneath the counter. Same thing I saw twice already today. The rhythm was clean rehearsed. My right hand twitched. Couldn't tell if it was from the heat or the pressure building in my chest. Either way, it wasn't good. Then Emily moved. She appeared from the side hallway carrying a small stack of laminated forms and a paper cup. She saw me and veered off course like it was planned. She didn't speak right away, just stood beside me for a second and then handed over the water like we'd agreed on this earlier. "Breathe with me," she said softly, so low only I could hear. Dua she counted slow and steady. Her voice didn't wobble. I followed. My ribs stopped clenching like a vice. The air felt thicker again, in a good way. My eyes adjusted, and I blinked the static away. The floor quit tilting under my boots. "You good?" she asked, brushing a stray curl behind her ear. I nodded, not trusting my voice yet. She glanced toward the front counter where Carla and Nadine were still giggling like sorority girls who'd just pulled off a prank. Then, without even breaking stride, she slipped her phone from her apron and palmed it. Camera down, screen dark. I saw the quick flick of her thumb. "Mic on. Recording." "You dropped this earlier?" she said, pulling my old Raven patch from her back pocket. The edges looked smoothed like she'd run her thumb over it without thinking. I took it from her hand like it was something breakable. "Nice bird," she added, giving me a crooked smile. "Very badass." "It's old," I muttered. "Like me." She tilted her head. "You're 37. Mike, trust me." I almost laughed, and something unknotted in my chest just for a second. Back near the counter, Carla called out a number completely out of sequence. The man she waved forward stood up confused and leaned over to whisper, "I've got kids in the car." Carla just nodded and took his papers. Nobody flinched except Emily and me. I kept my eyes moving, tracing a slow path from the main exit to the side door near the restrooms, noting how many chairs blocked the path, mapped my route. That's what I do, always have a way out. Time kept crawling, and every shuffle forward felt like a mile on bad joints. The backs of my knees were soaked through, and the scarred skin along my ribs itched under the compression shirt. My number finally lit up on the screen. I looked at Shane Porter. He glanced at me, then over at Carla Jensen. He didn't say anything. Just exhaled sharp through his nose and shifted his weight like he didn't want to be in this moment any more than I did. I stood slow knees, stiff shoulder popped. I adjusted the cane grip and started toward the taped arrows that led to the front. Behind me, Emily's voice followed calm as always. "You've got this." I didn't answer. I just nodded once the way we used to when we were told to breach and clear. No words, just move. As I stepped forward, Carla looked up, eyes already bored. Nadine was messing with a lipstick case and a reflection off the glass partition. They didn't see Emily's phone. They didn't know I'd already written the time down when they skipped 7 numbers. But I did. And I wasn't the same guy I used to be. Not completely. But I still knew how to hold my place. Carla's perfume hit before her voice did. Too sweet. Too heavy. She leaned against the counter like it was a throne. Nadine barely looked up from the computer. The screen's glow reflected off her glasses, hiding her eyes. "Paperwork," Nadine said, voice flat, mechanical. I slid the stack across the counter. Social Security card, discharge form, proof of address from the trailer park office, all in one manila folder. My hands were steady now. Too steady. That quiet kind of calm that usually came before something bad in the field. Carla drummed her nails against the laminate counter, the rhythm sharp and deliberate. "We prioritize courtesy here," she said. "Some folks show appreciation and things go smoother." I looked at the pencil holder. It was full, stuffed with white envelopes. I'd seen 3 passed off already. I understood exactly what she meant, even if I didn't speak that language. "Ill wait like everyone else," I said. My tone came out level, but my pulse didn't match it. Carla smirked, glancing toward Nadine like she was tagging her in. "You hear that," she said. "We got another one of those principled types." Nadine finally looked up. Her lipstick was fresh, too bright against her pale skin. "Lunch is in 10 minutes, she said. "Maybe next time. Don't cut it close." "Been here since 9:15, I told her. Watched 7 numbers jump ahead. That got me a look. Not guilt, just irritation. Carla's lips pressed thin. She closed the folder halfway and leaned back. "We're entitled to lunch," she said, grabbing her purse. "Well, be back eventually." Her tone made it sound like a dare. Nadine's side made a show of checking her watch. "You can't hold up the process for everyone else," she said, loud enough for the line to hear. A few heads turned. That was the trick. They wanted eyes on me, not them. I held the cane upright between my knees, voice still low. "I'm not holding anything up. I'm just standing where you told me to." Carla tilted her head. "Oh, he's got a tone." I saw Shane Porter shift by the door, his arms crossed, weight moving from one foot to the other. His eyes flicked between us, reading the temperature in the room. I recognized that look. Someone trying to decide if this was about to turn into a problem. Nadine raised 2 fingers and called over to him like she was hailing a cab. "Escort him out," she said. The whole room froze for half a second. Even the crying baby from earlier went quiet. Shane didn't move right away. I could see it, the hesitation. His jaw worked once, a muscle jumping. He didn't want to do it, but he also didn't want to lose his job. "Sir," he said, slow and formal, "I need you to step outside." I tightened my grip on the cane. "I didn't do anything." Carla was already halfway to the door, laughing under her breath. Nadine followed, grabbing her purse like the scene was beneath her. They didn't look back. I glanced sideways. Emily was still behind her counter, standing half in shadow near the copy machine, her eyes locked on mine. She didn't blink. Her hand rested near the pocket of her apron where I knew her phone was still running. "Screen black mic live," Sir Shane said again, voice lower now. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The people in line pretended not to stare. Nobody spoke. Nobody ever does in these moments. They just watched to see who would flinch first. "Please," I said. It wasn't anger in my voice, just exhaustion. He reached out his hand, closing around my upper arm. Not rough, but not gentle either. The kind of grip that says you're leaving one way or another. I let him guide me toward the door. My legs stiffened with every step. The glass door clacked shut behind me, sealing the air like a lid on a can. Inside, I could still hear Carla laughing, muffled through the pain. The sun hit hard, straight in the face. I blinked against it, chest tight. I could taste metal at the back of my throat. Then a side door creaked open. Emily slipped out, ignoring Nadine's voice barking from inside. "Do not, Jennifer." She didn't even get the name right. Emily came down the concrete steps, fast, hair coming loose, eyes bright and angry in a way that looked too young for this place. "You were brave in there," she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking slightly. I didn't feel brave, I said. Doesn't matter. You didn't back down. She looked back toward the window, saw Carla Jensen still gesturing wildly, and shook her head. That's exactly what they hate. She reached into her apron and pressed a small white business card into my palm. Her fingers brushed the scarred part of my skin and didn't pull back. If you want a record, she whispered, email me your notes. You'll make sure they're seen. I looked at the card. County seal in one corner, her name typed under administrative aid. It was probably the smallest title in that whole building, but at that moment it felt like the only one that mattered. I didn't have words for the rush that hit me. Part humiliation, part gratitude, part pure disbelief that someone had actually stepped forward. Without you, I told her voice rough, I would have walked. She gave a tiny shrug. Then I guess it's good I didn't listen to Jennifer. I huffed out a breath that almost turned into a laugh. The tension broke just enough to let me breathe again. The door behind us opened, Nadine's perfume cutting through the air again. Emily turned her head, slightly shoulders squared. Nadine froze halfway through the doorway, probably realizing her words from inside might have been caught on record. Emily didn't move closer or step back, just held her ground still between me and them. For a long second, nobody spoke. The air felt heavy like the space before a storm breaks. Then Nadine muttered something under her breath and turned back inside heels, clicking fast across the tile. Emily waited until the door shut again before speaking. She won't risk a real scene, she said. They count on people being quiet. I pocketed the business card. Not today, I said. She nodded once. Good. The bus hissed by on the road beyond the parking lot, and I realized I'd missed the one I planned to catch. Didn't matter. There'd be another way home. There always was. Emily started back toward the side door, then stopped halfway. You're going to need that license, she said. But next time, maybe don't come alone. Didn't plan on this being a two-person job, I said. She smiled, faint but real. They never do. Then she disappeared back inside, leaving me standing in the sunlight with a business card, a recording somewhere in her phone, and the first small crack in a system that had been locked tight for years. And for the first time in years, the burn under my skin eased not from shame, but from something close to purpose. The bus pulled away 2 minutes before I reached the stop. I saw its taillight shrink down the hill, leaving nothing but the sour smell of exhaust and the quiet hum of prairie heat settling back in. That was the last one headed north today. I adjusted the cane to my shoulder and turned toward County Road K4. No sidewalks out here, just gravel shoulders and roadside weeds. The sky was heavy with late afternoon haze, and the sweat under my collar had already soaked through. I fell into rhythm. Heel down cane plant, right foot forward. It wasn't fast, but it was mine. The traffic stayed light, maybe one car every couple of minutes. Most of them didn't slow. Folks out here are trained not to stop. But after 10 minutes of walking, a pickup eased over the fog line behind me, engine low tires crackling gravel. The window rolled down. Carter. I knew the voice before the face. I turned sun, hitting me square, and squinted through the glare. Dan Morales, I said. No way. The first real smile of the day hit me like a cough. I hadn't even felt it coming. He slapped the side of the truck like he was calling in an airstrike. Get in. You look like you've been wrestling a vending machine and lost the rematch. The cab smelled like coffee and old paper files. His dog, a short-haired mutt named Buddy, was curled in the back seat, tongue out, tail wagging without moving the rest of his body. Dan looked older than the last time I saw him, but we all do. Deep lines around the eyes, buzz-cut, still sharp forearms like tree trunks. He was my senior chief back on the Franklin. Ran ops, tight, no yelling, no wasted motion. When he left the Navy, he ended up in regional IT for the DMV desk job on paper, but he was always more of a fixer than a tech. We drove in silence for the first mile. He didn't ask questions right away. Just let me breathe. I take it this wasn't a social call, he said, finally eyes still on the road. I told him everything. Nadine, Carla, the envelopes, the quiet shove toward the door, Emily slipping me the card like she was passing intel under a table. The part about the numbers getting skipped the phone that stayed recording. He didn't interrupt. He didn't make a sound. He just went quiet in that dangerous way he always did when something didn't sit right. His hands tightened slightly on the wheel. The only tell. We've had rumors, Dan Morales said finally. Couple weird entries in the appointment logs, clusters that don't match voicemails about favoritism, cash talk, nothing concrete, nothing we could act on. He glanced sideways at me. Your word plus proof that changes everything. We pulled into a diner off Route 41, one of those places where the vinyl seats are torn and patched with duct tape, and the waitress refills your coffee like it's oxygen. He waved off menus. We're not eating, he said. We're working. I pulled out my notebook. Handwritten records. Wait times, date stamps. Rough sketches of what I saw and when names partial. Quotes the kind of stuff you keep when you don't trust anyone else to remember. He scanned through it while I sipped water from a sweating plastic cup. Didn't say much. Just made a couple low whistles and a soft grunt when he saw a pattern. Then he slid his phone across the table. His most recent email was open. Subject line abuse flag, Maple Ridge Station. It was addressed to Robert Bob Whitaker, the county director. I was about to send it before you called, he said. Now it's got weight. I nodded. Emily had her phone running. Audio's clean. Can't see faces, but the voices are clear. Dan leaned back. You ever think you'd be helping clean up a county license office? Honestly, I said, I thought I'd be dead by 30. He didn't smile, just nodded like that was fair. We drove back with the windows half down, just enough to stir the heat around. The fields outside blurred past in streaks of dry green and gold. Buddy snored behind us. He dropped me at the edge of the trailer park gravel crunching under the tires as we pulled up. Tomorrow morning, he said, shifting into park. We fix it. Bring your patience. And that stubborn head of yours. I stepped out and closed the door slowly. You bringing back up Bob Whitaker's, bringing 2 auditors. Quiet approach. No cameras, no headlines, just fix the process. I nodded and started to shut the door, but he called out, Hey. I leaned down again. You still got that raven patch? My hand went straight to my left pocket, felt the rough edges of the fabric, the old stitching worn almost smooth. Yeah, I said. Someone made sure of it. He nodded once, didn't ask who, didn't need to. He pulled away, slow window still down, left hand raised in an unspoken salute. I stood in the dust and watched the taillights vanish down the drive. Then I turned toward the trailer, knee aching, the sun burning down like it had a score to settle. Inside, I set the cane by the door, sat at the tiny kitchen table and unfolded Emily's card again. The paper felt smooth between my fingers, name typed clean across the middle. I didn't know what came next, but I knew I'd show up for it. I was up before the sun cracked the sky. Couldn't sleep, so I didn't bother trying. The trailer creaked in the early heat, metal roof ticking as the day warmed up. I fired up the dented stovetop burner and made the kind of coffee that strips paint, burnt grounds, lukewarm water, bitter as tar. Didn't matter. It woke me up. I stood in front of the mirror for a full minute. I wanted something clean, nothing too crisp, nothing with a logo. I picked a faded gray button-up. No patches, no tags, no reminders. It didn't scream military, didn't scream anything at all. That's what I wanted. My phone buzzed just after 6. Message from an unknown number, but I knew who it was. Emily upload here, Sylv. There was a secure drive link attached. Looked legit. I sent the audio file. A few minutes later, she replied with timestamps, clipped quotes, and a little message at the bottom I marked the spicy parts. Good luck. Around 7:30, Dan Morales called. Got it. It's solid. Bob Whitaker wants a clean look. No drama. We're setting it up from inside. Quiet, tight circle. Be ready, but don't show yet. He'll keep busy, I told him. He didn't ask what that meant. I think he already knew. By noon, I was down by the river helping set up a VFW food drive under the highway overpass near the grain elevators. Plastic folding tables, canned goods, taped up signs, paper forms held down with soup cans. I kept my hands moving, lifting, sorting, restocking. It helped. Every box I unpacked gave me something to do besides thinking about what was waiting across town. Around 1. Emily showed up, clipboard in hand, ponytail bouncing, tennis shoes already dusty from the gravel path. She walked straight toward me like we'd been working together for years. You again, she said, teasing, bumping my arm with the edge of the clipboard. We really must stop meeting like this. I tried not to smile. Failed halfway through. I like the odds. She tilted her head. Odds of what? Odds of running into someone who's not a jerk in this town, I said. That got a laugh, a real one, not polite. She reached into her tote bag and held up a drink carrier with 2 tall cups. Grabbed you a calf to go. Couldn't remember how you take it, so I guessed extra strong and black. Good guess. We unpacked boxes side by side. Some were labeled from local donors. Others came from regional warehouses. Emily moved fast, efficient, but light on her feet. Every now and then she'd mutter something in French. Pas mal voile, trop facile. It wasn't showy, just natural, like she forgot she was translating herself for the rest of us. And somehow, for 10 whole minutes, I forgot about my face. Forgot about the way people glance at me, then look away. Forgot about yesterday's shove. Forgot about the envelope scams, about the clock ticking down on what was coming next. That was a gift, even if it didn't last long. A retired Army captain big guy with a cane like mine stopped by our table. He eyed me for a second, then said, You coming to the Flag Day event downtown? I shrugged. Hadn't thought that far ahead. Emily grinned and bumped my shoulder. He is now, she said. That's a yes. I shot her a look. You sure about that? I am, she said. You need better hobbies than paperwork and rage. Around 4, I spotted a familiar figure across the lawn. Shane Porter. No badge, no uniform, just jeans, t-shirt, and a ball cap pulled low. He walked like a guy trying to be invisible, but it didn't work. He came close, but not too close. Hey, he said, barely lifting his chin. About yesterday. I waited. I hesitated, he said. Should have said something. Didn't. That's on me. He didn't look me in the eye. Sorry. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Emily leaned toward me as Shane walked off and whispered, Micro arc of redemption. Classic second act material. I snorted. You always narrate real life like it's a movie. Only the parts worth remembering, she said. The sun dipped behind the co-op silos just after 6, throwing long shadows across the grass. People started packing up tables, folding signs, carrying unopened boxes back to the VFW van. Emily stayed close, scribbling notes on her clipboard, checking names off a volunteer list. When we finished the last box, she tilted her head toward me again. Hey, she said, suddenly more casual this time. Low-pressure date, kettle corn, and a movie in the park Friday. I promised no speeches, just chairs, sugar, and a terrible projector. I hesitated not because I didn't want to go, but because it felt like a weird thing to deserve, like I hadn't done enough to earn something soft like that. She saw it and added, No pressure, just something slow and nice. We need more slow and nice. I gave a short nod. Yeah, that actually sounds perfect. Her smile widened but didn't stretch. It stayed grounded, real. She gave my arm a small squeeze, then went to check on the clipboard again. I stood there with the coffee still warm in my hand and a dozen things still rattling around in my chest, but none of them felt sharp anymore. At least, not for now. The next morning hit clear and hot. No breeze, just sunlight pouring through the blinds like it had somewhere to be. I was already dressed by 5. Coffee gone cold in the mug before I even noticed. My phone buzzed on the counter. Text from Dan Morales. 2 words. Green light. That was it. No details, no preamble, just like the old days. Short-coded enough to move. I took the early bus into town, rode with farmers and night shift workers staring at nothing. Nobody spoke. The ride hummed steady and low, a metronome for my nerves. By the time we hit the county building, the sky had that sharp morning clarity that makes every sound carry. I was there before the doors unlocked. The softball field grass was still wet with dew. My cane left dark marks in the sidewalk dust as I waited by the bench near the front window, the same one Emily had saved for me the first day. At 7:58 sharp, a county sedan rolled up. Robert Bob Whitaker stepped out first, tall white hair, built like a man who once split logs for heat. Behind him came 2 auditors carrying clipboards and a county attorney I recognized from the paper. No cameras, no press, just quiet faces that meant business. Dan climbed out of his own truck a minute later, sleeves rolled up file folder tucked under his arm. He gave me a single nod, barely noticeable, but it said enough. We're rolling. The door opened at 8. Emily was already behind the counter wearing a lanyard this time. Looked official. Her hair was pulled back and she had that calm focus I'd seen in medics right before triage. She caught my eye, gave a half smile and slid a plastic cup of water across the counter like it was routine. Back wall seat is open, she whispered. I took it the same spot as before. My preferred angle, nobody behind me. Exit in sight. Cane ready at my knee. Dan and Bob moved through the room quietly, setting up at a side table. The auditors started opening appointment logs on their laptops, syncing data from the scheduling server Dan had flagged the night before. At 8:10, the double doors swung open again. Nadine Walker entered first, hair lacquered into its usual helmet, followed by Carla Jensen already talking loud about parking. Their perfume hit the air like fog. Carla Jensen spotted the unfamiliar suits instantly. Her laugh froze halfway out of her throat. She turned pale. What's this Bob Whitaker didn't answer? He didn't have to. The auditors had already started pulling printouts. Dan Morales' tone was calm, methodical. Appointment logs show multiple overrides. Same pattern across 3 weeks. Same initials. Nadine's eyes darted toward Carla. I'm sure there's an explanation. There is, Dan said. We're looking at it. One of the auditors tapped a line on the screen. Manual courtesy flags added outside standard parameters. And here same time slot marked closed on the public schedule. Carla tried a brittle laugh. You people act like this is Watergate. We were just keeping things moving. That's when Emily pressed play on her phone. The audio came through a portable speaker shed placed on the counter. The sound filled the room. Carla's voice sharp and clear. We prioritize courtesy. Nadine's voice followed colder. We're entitled to lunch. The silence that followed made everyone look up at once. Bob Whitaker didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Place those pencil holder envelopes on the desk, he said. Carla blinked. Excuse me? Now, he said simply. Nadine opened the drawer, hands trembling. A stack of envelopes, white and rubber-banded, appeared in plain sight. Carla tried to recover. Those are donations. Office fund for birthdays. And the county attorney stepped closer. To what charity? Neither of them answered. Shane Porter stood in the corner plain clothes today, hands clasped in front of him. Bob turned toward him. Officer Porter, you were present yesterday. Tell us what happened. Shane swallowed hard. I was told to escort Mr. Carter out, he said. I hesitated. I still did it. Should have questioned it. Didn't. Bob studied him a moment, then nodded once. You'll complete remedial training through Veteran Services. You'll stay on if you pass. Shane's shoulders dropped with relief. Understood, sir, Carla sputtered. This is ridiculous. You can't just... Bob lifted a hand. You're suspended pending audit review. Nadine started to protest, but the attorney was already bagging the envelopes into evidence sleeves. Dan kept his eyes down, methodical, noting every timestamp. The process was in motion now, and it wasn't going to pause. I stayed silent, just watched. The rhythm of the cane tapping lightly against the floor kept my pulse steady. Emily glanced back, once expression unreadable, then turned to finish logging visitor numbers into her tablet. Professional, controlled, focused. 10 minutes later, Bob Whitaker looked toward me. Mr. Carter, he said, tone neutral but respectful. You've waited long enough. Let's get you processed. My number popped up on the overhead screen. Clean digital letters. No skipping this time, no envelopes sliding anywhere. I made my way to the counter. Emily stood ready, typing quick checking forms, scanning documents. Smile, she said softly, half joking as the camera beeped. Or at least look not sad. This is my not sad face, I told her. She gave an exaggerated eye roll, convincing, she said, as the printer whirred. The county auditor clicked approval into the system, confirming it with a quiet done. The sound of that confirmation ping felt like air clearing after a storm. Bob Whitaker turned to Dan Morales. Good work, both of you, he said then to me. Thank you for coming forward. We needed eyes that weren't compromised. I didn't say much, just nodded. The words didn't matter as much as the outcome. The system finally looked back at itself and blinked. Emily slid the new license across the counter. The photo was rough, the kind of picture you'd never show anyone, but it was mine. Official. Real. For the first time in years, I existed again in a system that had almost erased me. Dan lingered in the doorway. He caught my eye, gave a small salute with 2 fingers, just a flicker. I pretended not to see it, but he knew I did. That was enough. The building was quiet as the auditors packed up Nadine and Carla, whispering behind the partition. The faint smell of their perfume still hung in the air, but the authority in the room had shifted. I tucked the license into my wallet, slipped the cane under my arm, and walked out slow but steady. Outside, the morning light was harsh and honest. For once, it didn't feel like a threat. Friday night hit warmer than expected. The kind of sticky Midwest air that settles behind your ears and never lets go. Town Square was packed. Kids in lawn chairs, couples with blankets, dogs tied to benches, the popcorn stand kicking up sugar smoke that hung over the square. Emily met me by the water fountain denim jacket over a sundress bag of kettle corn already half gone. She didn't ask how the week had been. Didn't prod or dig or offer pity. Just handed me the bag and nodded toward the park lawn. We picked a quiet spot near the back, a little uphill, good sightline on the screen. The movie was some cheesy rom-com from the early 2000s, but it didn't matter. She kept her knees folded under her, sipped something fizzy through a paper straw, and leaned close enough for me to hear her hum along with the credits music. Halfway through the movie, a little boy wandered over and stared at the side of my face. He didn't say anything at first, just blinked, then asked, clear as a bell, "Does it hurt?" I paused, met his eyes. "Not like before," I said. His mom stepped in, fast, apologizing, red in the face. I shook my head. "He's good." Honest question. She nodded, half relieved. Emily didn't say anything, just reached for my hand and gave it a quick squeeze, then let go. No big moment, just contact. The next morning, I fixed her Wi-Fi. Her signal had been spotty for days, and it didn't take long to figure out the router was aimed directly at a wall mirror. Full signal bounce. I showed her and said, "You're nuking your own bandwidth. This setup's a vibe killer." She snorted. "Pardon, Mr. Carter." I was unaware that ambiance could destroy technology. I adjusted the position, checked speeds, then said, "New password." She held up a finger. Something safe but memorable. I offered, "How about Free Cruise 2026? She grinned. "Perfect. I shall not click the shiny email. I swear. Basic OPSEC don't get seduced by glitter fonts." Her kitchen smelled like lemon cleaner and toast. The coffee was weak, but it was hers. We didn't feel the silence. We let it sit. That was better than words most days. Around noon, a text blast went out across half the town. Looked official Department of Transportation appointment confirmations, but the links were off. Wrong domain structure. Fishy subject lines. I flagged it straight to Dan Morales with a note. Spoof. Bad spoof. Someone's phishing. He got it shut down by lunch. Said later the server was based out of Ohio, probably some script kid testing a botnet. Still, the town almost bit. That night, Emily's phone pinged with a FaceTime call. She looked at me with mock panic and said, "That's Mama. Do not mock my French side." I held up my hands. Scout's honor. The call came through loud and clear. Her mom, mid-50s sharp eyes, called me Monsieur Carter and asked in French where I was from. Emily translated. "I'm from Minnesota," I answered. Her mom grinned. "Ah, very Midwest your accent, it is charming." I chose to take it as a compliment. After the call ended, Emily handed me a tiny silver tin with a soft smile. "Open it," she said. Inside was my raven patch, cleaned up, pressed flat, stitched to a square of gray, felt like it belonged to something sacred. The edges were reinforced with fresh thread. "I gave him a spa day," she said. "Figured he earned it." I stared at it longer than I should have. Couldn't say anything right away. Just nodded. Later, we walked the night market together. Big crowd, loud music, too many smells in one space. Grilled meat incense, warm trash. It pressed on my chest. My fingers twitched. I started to drift right, scanning exits. Emily caught it. "You want to try that breathing thing?" she asked. I nodded. She mirrored me. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 6. Second try, she nailed it. Threw both hands up like a magician finishing a trick. I laughed. Show off. We grabbed dumplings from a food truck, then found the corner table in a small cafe near the edge of the square. It was the only one with a view of the whole room and both exits. I sat with my back to the wall. She didn't say a word, just shifted her chair to face the same way, matched my posture, without making it feel like a gesture, just synced up. We talked about Flag Day. She said the office was planning to actually honor vets this time, not a surface-level nod, not some half-baked mention from the mic. "For real," she said. "Pod show. No parade float garbage." She rested a hand on my shoulder. "We want it to count." I believed her. On the walk back to her place, she pulled a leftover handful of kettle corn from her bag and lobbed it at my hat. It missed wide. I smirked. "You throw like an airman." She gasped, mock offended. "That is slander, truth hurts." "I will challenge you to a duel," she said. "Choose your weapon." Popcorn, obviously. We didn't talk about where this thing between us was headed. Didn't lay out terms or promises. Just walked side by side down Main Street past shuttered shops and glowing porch lights moving slow like the world wasn't racing ahead for once. And it felt right, like the speed I'd been trying to match for years finally made sense again. The Friday night popcorn still clung to my jacket when I stepped into the town square the next morning. June 14th. Flag Day. And the whole place looked dipped in red, white, and sweat. Bunting everywhere, flags tucked into every planter windows painted with stars by some overeager fourth graders. The brass band warmed up near the gazebo horns, blaring off key while the snare tested rolls. Kids tore across the grass with popsicles melting down their wrists. One bumped my knee and shouted, "Sorry, mister," before sprinting off like he was being chased. I found a clear spot near the back halfway behind a vendor tent, figuring I could watch from a distance without getting pulled in. That lasted all of maybe 30 seconds before Dan Morales spotted me. He was wearing khaki stew clean for a man who used to run comms in storm zones. He walked like he'd been waiting for me to show up late on purpose. "Don't duck out," he said, placing a hand on my back and steering me toward the stage. "You don't have to talk unless you want to. Just stand there, visible witness, no big deal. I didn't sign up for that." "You didn't have to," he said. "Your face already did." I got as far as the side steps before Bob Whitaker took the mic. Clean shirt, county seal pin, voice firm, and measured like always. "Today isn't just a ceremony," he said. "It's a chance to recognize two kinds of service, those who wore the uniform and those who held public trust. Both matter. Both demand accountability." He paused just long enough for the crowd to settle. "I want to thank the intern who turned on a light when others looked away. Miss Emily Belcourt." He was looking at her. Everyone was. Emily stepped up slow, not shy, but steady. She wore a navy blue sundress and flats that were already covered in dust. Her cheeks flushed pink the second she touched the mic. "We just tried to do good," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. "That's all." A few scattered claps turned into more. She didn't smile until she turned and walked toward me. She carried a small canvas bag and handed it over like it weighed something real. From the crew, she whispered. I opened it just enough to see what was inside: soft leather gloves and a navy ball cap stitched with Midwest Vets County Team. No fanfare, just a thing that meant something. I nodded and said, "Thanks," loud enough for the second row. Emily's eyes crinkled like I'd just won something. Felt like being let back inside the fence. The applause faded. Bob moved on with the program, some reading about county improvements, a list of new policy shifts. Most of the crowd half listened while eating soft pretzels or trying to keep toddlers from smacking each other with souvenir flags. Later that afternoon, a local Facebook group exploded with rants, stuff like DMV witch hunt and poor ladies getting railroaded. But by the time Dan dropped the anonymized audit timestamps, blocked appointments, ledger screenshots, clipped audio quotes, the thread went quiet fast. He didn't need to name names. The receipts did the talking. Back in the square, the sun climbed high and the brass band kicked into Stars and Stripes Forever. I scanned the crowd from my corner. Shane Porter stood near a hydration tent, plainclothes head on a swivel. A teenager tried to cut past an elderly vet in a mobility chair. Shane caught it without fuss, redirecting the kid with one hand and a quiet word. Small moment, right move. A few minutes later, someone called my name. Just once from the mic. Emily's eyes flicked to me. Dan Morales gave the slightest chin tilt. Bob Whitaker nodded. I sighed. I stepped up to the platform and faced the crowd. I didn't want to be up there, but I also didn't want to let the silence fill the gap. I didn't do anything alone, I said. That was it. Then I pointed to Emily without thinking. She did more than me. Emily flushed. The crowd clapped. Not loud, not staged, just human. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a staged moment, which is probably why it felt honest. After the final notes faded and the chairs started folding, I found her by the popcorn booth again, sipping lemonade and talking with the city clerk about compost bins. I waited till the conversation died out, then stepped next to her. Another walk. She raised an eyebrow. "You asking or ordering asking?" I said. "But I can throw in a command tone if that helps." She grinned. "Toujours?" she said, then immediately rolled her eyes. "I mean, yes, sorry." Reflex. We started walking. Her pace matched mine, easy and natural. She didn't rush, didn't fill the air with questions. Just walked beside me like she'd always been there. The flags ticked gently against their poles in the breeze. The square almost empty now. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years: stillness without the tension behind it. We didn't say much on the way out. We didn't need to. 2 days after Flag Day, the county posted the results like they were announcing school board elections. Quiet, clean, and blunt. Nadine and Carla suspended pending charges. Internal audit concluded. Cash handling reassigned to a secure window with cameras. Random reviews scheduled quarterly. No ribbon cuttings, no speeches. It didn't make headlines, but the regulars noticed. You could hear it in the library at the grocery store behind church bulletins. They finally did something. That was enough. Shane sent me a text that morning. Thank you for not roasting me online. I didn't send words back, just a thumbs up. That felt like the right scale. Dan stopped by the park table where Emily and I were sorting donations. He looked tired, sunburned, and smug. Guess who just got volunteered to run the transparency pilot for the whole region? Dan Morales said, holding up a folder. Emily raised her eyebrows. That sounds awful, he groaned. It is, but I get to name the server protocols and wreck someone's lunch calendar, so that's a win. Then he grinned like a kid on Christmas morning. The next day, I made the drive to Maple Ridge. The new license card sat in my wallet like a quiet reminder photo. Rough edges sharp, but mine. I'd rented an old Chevy Impala through a vet discount program Dan recommended. It smelled like damp carpet and spearmint gum, but it ran clean. Sunlight cut across the windshield, and the heat made the scars on my jaw itch like they were waking up again. I rolled down the window and let the wind smack me around until the air settled the nerves. Jake met me on the porch of a rental held together by duct tape. Hope and overdue notices. He stepped out barefoot, looking taller and leaner than I remembered. Hair longer, eyes the same. Holy smokes, he said. You actually showed. I didn't answer. He walked straight up and hugged me tight and fast like he was 12 again, and I was 19 back from a deployment with sand still in my boots. For a second, it was simple. Just brothers. No damage. We sat on milk crates out front, drank root beer from cans, and ate gas station burritos like they were gourmet. Jake talked fast, all ketchup and sarcasm, telling me I was late but not too late. I listened. That was the job today. He asked if I was good. I said I was better. He didn't push. I think he knew not to. On the way back, I didn't go home right away. Pulled into the parking lot of a small church and just sat there, engine ticking hands on the wheel. I stared at the highway sign pointing both directions and let the feeling roll in. The urge to turn around was loud, like static, but it didn't win. Not this time. Instead, I drove straight to the park. Emily was there, standing under a tree with a clipboard and a stack of flyers, talking to a woman in a bright blue hat about food pantry hours. She saw me and waved without stopping her sentence. By the time I reached her, she was already handing me a flyer. Thought you might show. Thought you might need a tall guy to reach the high boxes. Obviously, I said. You're practically overqualified. We worked the rest of the hour like it was a standing shift, me stacking and hauling her, checking off names and dodging bees. When it slowed down, she asked, "How was Jake?" I looked at her and gave the honest answer. He's good. Better than I expected. And I might be okay. She didn't press for more, just nodded. Right then, a little boy ran by, skidded to a stop in front of me, and threw up a crooked salute with the wrong hand. He was grinning like he'd caught me off guard. I saluted back right hand this time and gently flipped his wrist to the correct side. He giggled like I'd taught him a magic trick, then bolted off yelling something about ice cream. Emily leaned close, shoulder to shoulder, and said, "Coffee." I looked toward the square, already picturing the usual table in the back corner. Same view of the exit. Same chipped mug with my fingerprint still on it from 3 days ago. "Always," I said. She smiled, turned on her heel, and we started another lap, flyers in hand, steps in sync like we'd already walked this path 100 times. After the Flag Day cleanup, the town square emptied slow like everyone was exhaling at the same time. The brass band was packing up by the gazebo cases, clapping shut trumpets still faintly buzzing from leftover notes. The air smelled like kettle corn, hot pavement, and something close to peace. I sat on the tailgate of Dan Morales' truck legs, stretched hat in my lap. The night was warm, the kind of easy warmth that doesn't demand anything. Emily leaned beside me, kicking her heels lightly against the bumper. She reached over, adjusted the brim of the hat she'd given me back at the ceremony, tilting it a little to the left. "It suits you," she said. "Pretty heroic." "I'm not that," I told her. She shrugged, small and sure. "You're stubborn and kind." "That's better." I didn't argue. My phone buzzed against my thigh. Jake's name lit up the screen. I picked it up. His voice came through, bright, a little cracked. "I'm proud of you, man," he said. "You've always been my hero, my dad, my brother, my friend since the day I showed up." I stared at the gravel. The words landed somewhere deep in the places that still burned when I wasn't paying attention. "I just stood in a line," I said. He laughed. "You stood up. Not the same." Before I could answer, Dan came around the side of the truck, coil of extension cord over one shoulder, clipboard under the other. He clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder, the kind that steadied more than it hurt. "Bob Whitaker wants you to say a few words at the Veteran Support Night next month," he said. "Only if you want to." I took a breath. Maybe I said. "He'll think about it." He nodded, the corner of his mouth twitching. "Thinking's a start." Then Dan Morales turned back toward the stage, mumbling about tangled cords and missing sockets. Emily bumped her knee into mine. "I don't promise easy," she said, voice softer now. "But I do promise together we navigate." I looked at her. The stage lights behind us threw gold edges around her hair, and for the first time, I didn't look away from the brightness. "Let's try," I said. "All of it. The noise, the lines, the weird days. You and me." She smiled slow, like the moment mattered more than the words. "Deal," she said. Then added, "One condition: you protect me from geese. They terrify me." I snorted. "Mom, I once routed comms in a dust storm. I can handle a goose." She burst out laughing, the sound unguarded and loud enough to startle the crew still stacking chairs. "'Tears brave," she said, wiping at her eyes. "Well, make a good team." We slid off the tailgate and started walking across the square. The shops were half dark, only the diner and the pharmacy still glowing at the far end. I kept my back to the storefronts, a habit I didn't bother to hide anymore. Emily didn't say anything about it. She just stepped to my outside, matching pace, her hand brushing mine every few steps, light as static. We passed the courthouse steps where the flags still hung heavy, their fabric ticking against metal poles in the night breeze. Shane Porter crossed our path, carrying a stack of folded chairs. He nodded once. "See you around, sir." "See you," I said, meaning it. He walked on. The square was almost empty now, just the sound of flags and the faint echo of laughter from the street over. I looked down at the hat in my hands, the stitching rough, bold letters catching the light. Midwest Vets County Team. I put it on. It fit. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself when it would have been easier to just walk away? If this story hit home, leave a comment and tell us what you think, or just write "good story" to let us know you're here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It's just one click for you, but it really helps our channel grow. Love you guys. YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.